I'll solve some puzzles from 100 Endgames you must know. It's a course provided by Chessable. So now I'm already on position 4. Yeah, this is a draw since white can move the king on f1 or g1. But white had to be careful. If he plays white king h1, he had to be worried about some position. Black plays his bishop on f3 and his king on f2. Now if it's white to move, then he will lost. So the easiest way to draw is to put the king on f1 and g1. Yes, and now I think king h1 or king f1 both draw. Somehow this is a little bit different since the winning position in here and black knight on f3 it is white to move. He must take and black take with king. White play king g1, g2, king h2, king f2, and the pawn promotes. So play knight c4, d2. And king e2. Okay. And king e2 is better, actually. Yeah, to king f2. And it's a very basic king's end game. This white pawn can move 2 square instead of 1, so it's white to move, black not in time to catch the pawn. And after a4, black king had to stay in the square, but not in time. And next, yeah, since white's king is very active, so I suppose the pawn had no chance to draw. Yeah, king c7 wins, but also b4. King c7 most easy. And now if it's white move, yeah, he wins by f7. If black to move, it's a draw. King g8. Now king g8 draw. To king f6 is stalemate. And this in this position, white had to be careful. If he played king b6, black played king b8. Now it's a draw position as we learned before. So important move is king a6. Only after black plays king b8, white places king on b6. Now it's white black to move, so white wins. So the position after king b6, king b8, king b6 is can be called Zugzwang. The one who have to move uh, mm, sometimes a tempo it's worse to have a extra tempo as showed in this position. Yeah, in this position, no matter who moves, white wins since white can play king f5, black retreat to g8, white plays king g6, and king f8, king f6, white wins. And now white had only one way to draw. Just as we learned before, if king g1, black plays g2, then it's lost. But white can miraculously save himself by playing king h1. Now if king f2, surprisingly it's a stalemate. If black didn't play king f2, he had to go g2 after king g1, king g3, it's a draw. Yeah, and this position I play king f6, very important to put the king ahead of the pawn, so you can control more square, and then black's king will lose his um, squares and have to uh, leave the important square. So king f6, the only winning move. And now g6 is a draw. We learned, but white can play king at g6, or he can repeat moves by playing king f8, king h7, king f7, or he can play king f6, king h7, king f7, king h8. But the most important move is king g6 here. And king h6. Now if king f6, black plays king h7, white had to go back to f7, then king g6. Still wins, but no need g7. Yeah, it's an important square. C6, D6, and E6. So white played king to D5. At least he can reach one of the three square. In this position, C6, so king D5 and king C6. White wins. Or D5. King D6, yes, is uh, D5 wins, but if not there, if the pawn plays on third line, then king D6 better. And there is no need to calculate any variations. That's true. Now black plays can if it's black to move, he can play king c4 to reach the winning position. But if it's white to play, white has to be careful. Since if he play most natural move king b2 after king b4, king c2, king c4, and white cannot prevent black's king to reach one of these squares. So the most important move is king b1, king b4, king b2, king c4, king c2, king d4, king d2, and now on pawn on black pawn on c5, his king cannot reach one of these three squares. Yeah, and in this position, white had one reversed square for the pawn. So after g4, black had to move his queen away from g7. Then white can control one of the square from f6, g6 to h6, g4, the winning move. Hello. Yeah, sometimes I have to. So one position three times. No, no. Where course or next lesson. And then setting. Yeah. Oh, this one. To one. No, maybe it's for this course. Then one had to time on each problem. Okay. But it's not because of the course, right? Okay. So I'll just wait for the answer. Oh, or should we continue? Okay, okay. This is a position rook against the bishop. Since what black's king is not plays very good, especially h8 is a dark square, the same as his bishop. So if king cut on g8, then the position is totally lost. Whenever, no matter where black's dark square bishop placed, if he placed on g1, then white can attack it by play rook f1, and bishop h2, and rook h1, and bishop g3, rook h3, rook g1, g2, and then the bishop should move to the other square, which is more dangerous. Rook d2, and bishop e7, white can play rook a2 or rook c2 since there's no e7 square for his king. Rook c8, winning. Okay, but this one is a draw since H square is a dark square, but white black has a light square bishop. Now it's a theoretical draw. But with rook against knight, if the knight is on a normal square, not at the corner of the board, now it should normally end in draw. In this position, white can check with knight f2, knight d1. If black places king on f3, white had knight c3, knight d1. Yeah, but if the knight is very badly placed, then he might lose. Yeah, on g1, it's the worst um, settle, setup for the knight. And now it's also lost with king f3. Now it's also lost. But yeah, this is uh, not that easy to evaluate. Normally, the side with knight should draw if the knight is not too badly placed. So now we come to the exercises. You will play knight c4, king g2, knight e3, and then one can place his knight on g4 or f1 and control the h2 square. So draw. Second one, black to move. Black wins. Black king g2, king g3. Uh-huh. Where? Where? Knight curse. Yeah. Here, course. Yeah. Here. Oh, wow. Yes, yes. What? Or, okay, okay. Okay, okay. So we come to this position. Um, Now white plays b7, knight e5, and white can play king b8 instead of king b6. King b6 and knight d7 is draw. After king b8, knight c6, king c7, knight b4, king b6, wins, or knight d7, king c8. Yes, it wins. King b8 is the most important move in this puzzle. So why to move after king g4 we reach the famous position rook endgame. King g3 draws. King c3 or king b3. King g1. King h1. What? G3. And the square. Black can draw with knight with white to move. I think it's on e8. On e8, white had to play king g6. If king g8, knight f6. So after king g6, black play knight d6 and draw. And on other square, on e6, then white play king g8, knight f8, bishop f5, to the Zugzwang. And yeah, knight only has one square on e8. It's black to move. So yeah, he can play rook a8. After king h4, white black checks, and white cannot make progress. If after rook a8, if white play g5, then black play rook h4 to cut his king off. And then after g6, black again he played king a6, rook a6, attacks the pawn. If g7, rook g6. So I think rook a8 is the only move to draw. And another move. So rook a8 here. Yeah, since black cannot play rook f8 since ah yeah, he can also play rook f8 if change the rook, king f4, black plays king g8. Yeah, draws. But any other rook move also draw, like rook a8 or rook g8. White black. Yeah, black cannot take the pawn since white check on h5. King c6 not possible due to b5. Black had to play king d4, but after b5, the king was cut. So he had to play king c6. After king c4, King c6 and played rook k5, then king b6, and now it's a draw. Let's check g1. Rook d8 with idea rook d8. So white black had to defend with rook h7. The rook e3. Oh, black just check here. Rook b2. Yes, after king c6 to draw. If king c4, white black had to play rook c1 check. Otherwise, after rook h6 check, white can play king b5 is winning. After rook c1, rook c3, rook h1, or just rook a1, b5, king b6, draw. It's white to move. G1. G4, H4, the same, and H5, and G5, and white is winning. The G3. Yes, also King G4 wins. Since here, if black plays H6, white can continue with King F4, King H5, G3, king g6, king e5, king h5, king f6, king g6, king g4, king g6, king g3, h5, win. After h6, king f4, king f6, g4, king e6, king e4, win. It's very important to put the king ahead of the pawn. Black to move. Yeah, I think king a3 draws, but king c3 lost, since if king c3, white plays knight e7, bishop c7, knight c5, when knight e6 follows, and then a6, a5, a6, and white can place the knight on b6. After king a7, knight b7, bishop c7, knight c5, bishop d8, knight e6, black and knight, bishop b6, and the pawn should be prevented. Let's draw. After king a6, white is threatened b7, bishop e5, and king a7. So black had to prevent it by playing bishop e5. Now b7, bishop b8, and then king e7, king d8, draws. After bishop e5, king a7, bishop d4, draws. It's white to move. Yes, knight g6 draws. Since if black play h2, white go back to h4, and king g1, knight f3, knight h2 draws. Knight g6. Otherwise, black plays king g1, but after knight e5, knight just in time to back to g6, g4. So when knight reached g4 against the pawn h3, it's a draw, since white had the knight had two squares, yeah, four squares. It's white to move. First, white takes on h5, king b3, b5 take, b6, king d2, b7, c3, b8, c2, it draws. But white can play king h4, and now black cannot play king b1 since he had one pawn left. There's no stalemate on a1, but he can play king b5. Now if white takes, king a4, king g4, king b7, king b3. Ah, yes, king h4 is the solution. If king b3 wins, now white just play king b2. king e4. And now I play king g3, check, check, e2, e2, and d3. It's made. But problem is after king h4, king b5 is more tedious since after king h5, king a4, king g4, king b3, b5, take b6, king d2, and b8, c2, white plays king, queen b2, king d1, king f3, and c1, queen e2. White just mate on e2. So this position rook h4 wins. And then white can just simply play b4, king b3, rook h5, b5, king b4. Cut king off. Black to move. Since here king cannot get into the square of the pawn, so after king h3 draws. Oh no. Actually, on king on e4, on king on e4 it's a draw. Since after queen b2, king h1. Yes. Queen e2, king g1. Square on board. The black can draw. Yes, it should be on a1. Since if king on h1 and black plays king a5, king g2, king a4, king f3, b5, e4, c6, e5 is lost. Or king c6, a5, or king c6, just king g2, king d5, a5 is lost. On h8 also wins. a8, yes, also wins. So knight, if the king on a1, then black played king a5. If king b2, a4, c3, b5, d3, c6, e4, d6, just in time. Or if black played d5, king b6, b2, c5, c3, d5, b4, c6 draw. So knight should be placed on a1. Now it's black to move. Yeah, black had to check. Since if king e5 first, after rook a6, the king also cut off from 5. And after rook h8, king g5, rook g8, rook g6 lost. So check first, then rook king e5. Since after rook g8, rook a5, black also lost. And now, since a little bit different, since white's king cannot go to h4, So black can just wait by rook h7. And it's white. Oh, I know this position. White plays rook f2. Since if to cut his king after rook f2, g6, b7, g4, c6, g5, d5, g3, rook f8, g4, e4. White just in time. Yes, king g4 is the only move. If king g6, king f4, h6, rook a6, king h5, rook king f5. If king g7, king g5, h6, 7, rook a7, king g8, king g6, lost. After rook g4, king g4, king e4, h6, e5, h7, rook a8, king g5, king e6, g6, draw, e7, g7, yes. Rook h1, no, king g5 is the only move, yes. Now, h7 is the only move since after king g6, king e6. Also draw. King g7. Since after h7, rook g1, king h6, rook king f6, king f7 lost. Yeah, king g7. Now what happened if h7? H7 also draw. Now black to move. Uh, and I remember if black takes with pawn. No, it's a theoretical draw, so black had to take with rook, and black's idea to play king g5 at some point. So first takes bishop, then king g5, and now maybe rook d5. Yes, and here check, check, and king h4 wins. There are not enough square for his bishop. It's black to move. Now a5 just lost due to rook h5. But what about king c5 or king b5? King b5, f7, a5, king e6, a4, king d4, king d5, a3, king d4, king b4, king d3. King d4, king b4, black. White checks on b8, so black had to play king c5. Yes, body check. King, and now e5. Here. Here a4 draws just like, as the last example shows, and now a3. King c4, e3. And now, if a2, rook b8 lost, but king b2 draws. c1. Yeah. And white to move. King f5, rook d1, king e6. He had to play king f8. Rook f7. King g8, rook d7. Rook e1, king f6. Rook f1, king e7. The wins. If rook f7 check, king e8, rook a7, king f8, rook a8, king g7, king e7. Yes, it's a win. So white wins. Playing king f5, king f5, rook a5, king f6 win. Rook d1, king f5, king f8, king f6 win. Yeah. So rook d1, king e6 win. Thanks. Win. Check here. Rook d7 and king f6. No. Why not rook king f6? King e7, king g7. And after e6, rook a8, it's a draw. Ah, white played king e8. After king g6, rook d6, king f5, e6. Rook d6, e6. Now e7 played. I think king f6 also wins. Yeah. Yes, it says my internet has some problem. but now, yeah, but now it's fine. Yeah. Why to play to draw? Yes, king f8, king f2 draw. c5, king e3, king c2, king e2, king c3, king d1, c4, and king c2. Now white plays c5 and draw. Um, let's check one by one. First, king c6. Six, rook e7, d5. What is king c6? Well, let's check king e6, king e6. Um, king e6 we lost. After rook d4, e5, king d3, king f7, rook f4, g6, rook e4, king f6, e4, e6, king d5, e7, king d6. What? What if king c4? C4. think also draw. King c4. King d2. e5, king e3, king c5, e4, e6, rook a7, king d6, rook a6, king d7, d5, e5, e7, rook a7, king d8, king d6, e8, knight. It seems king c6 and king c4 both draw. So let's play king c6. Yeah, king c6 and king c4 draw, and king e6 lost. It's black to move. Wins by play king e4 after king h6, king f4, g5, bishop g6, h5, king f5, hg, hg, and black wins the pawn on g5. And black to move. Checks on g3, h6, king f7. But now it wins. Yes, since after bishop g3, black queens, and then when mate follows, king f8, or rook f3, h8, rook f4, and then c1. Yes, win. It's black to move. And to play bishop e4, stop the pawn. And it's draw. It's draw. And knight e7, or king b7, or knight. No, white cannot protect the pawn e7. So bishop e4, draw. b7, yes, draw. King b6, f5, king a7, or knight e7. Yes, pawn is unstoppable. White to move. g6, g4 with g5 follows. If white can play g5, then he take, catch 8, g6, and go back, push the pawn, and wins. So g4, king f, king h6, and g5, king h5, bishop f5, king h4, bishop e6, Didn't win. G5. After king h8. G5, G6, and take, go back, F5, F6, it's unstoppable. Yes, although it's more stubborn, it's also lost. Yeah, bishop at e6 and g6, f5 follows. F6, it wins. RP. Take first. Bishop f6. What? Uh, uh, yeah, it's very important to get the bishop to this d8, h4 while stop the pawn from pushing. It draws. Yeah, but after g4 it wins. Find the mistake in following moves. Um, and black had to prevent white's king to f7, so black had to play rook g7. After h7, king f7, rook g7, king f8, and rook g5, queen e6. It's a Zugzwang, and black has run out of moves. So here, first mistake, first mistake for white, second mistake, second mistake. Third mistake, yes. Here black had to play rook g7. And now white finally played king f7. And here king f6. Actually now white can make a triangle by playing queen f7, king h8, queen f6, king h7, and then queen e6 wins. And this is not so good, but maybe position still win. And white can get back by playing queen e6. But after this, it's not winning anymore. Yeah, so it draws. Yeah, rook g7 is the move. King f7 move. Rook g7 and move. Here, oh, white still win. White still win. King e7. No, rook g7 again. Rook f7. Okay. Yes, many mistakes both sides. Way to play. Bishop c3. Take b4. King f7. King d5. e8. King c6. May wins, but King g6. b4. King f5. King d5. King f4. b4. b5. King e3. King c6. King d3. Bishop e5. King c4. Black just in time. Five. Four. Alright, bishop c5, black has bishop a5. The point. What if bishop d2? It takes b4, king 5, king d5, king g4, d5, king f3, or king g4, king e4, e3, e5, king f4, 2, 4, king e2, king g4, 5, king f3, what is the idea? Or maybe king g4, king e4, king g3, bishop e3, king g2, b5, f1, not sure. I don't know actually. I don't. King d2 also wins. King c6, king e4. Ah, bishop e1, king d3, king b7. Oh, that's the point. Bishop g3, king c4. Or bishop f2, king c4, bishop b6, bishop g5. What raise bishop king b7? Oh, king c4, king a6. Ah, very nice. Bishop g5, bishop f2, king c4, king a6, bishop d8, bishop e1, win. Bishop c3, draw. Bishop e1. Take b4, king f5, king d5, king f4, b5, king e3, king c4, king d5, king a6, c5, king a6. That's the point. Place the king a6, then bishop a5 threat is a very deadly threat. Yes, bishop e4. Now I know king b7, a6, a5. But bishop c3 withdraw. Oh, black got one tempo. Yeah, king b7 is very important to know king b7. Okay, next. This is not so easy. Black to play. King e4 is the only move here. Otherwise, rook h1, king g7 is lost. Rook f8. Have to check here. And also had to check. As he takes and king d3. King e3 is a move. First I thought king c3, but after rook e8, lost. But king e3, e4 and king f3. And knight 8 draws. Rook g1, king f6, rook f1, king e7, rook h1, h8, take, and Why not rook g1 check here? King f6, rook f1, king e7, rook h1, h8, take. Queen f3, king f3, rook f8, king g3. King d2, king d6, e4, king e8, king f3, king d5. It's lost. It's very strange. Rook h7 is the only move. Now it's king g6, e4, king f5, e3. Okay, check, king c2. Rook e3, king e3 is the only move here. Last one. White to draw. This after king e3, rook a1, check, and rook king e4 here. Central. Okay, so last one for the day. Black